right, friends, welcome back to the channel. And today I wanted to kind of continue or maybe start. I don't really know which one it is, but I've made videos like this before, but I guess I'm going to continue it with like the SOU PP332 breakdown. I want to continue to kind of like myth bust peptides and kind of give you guys the reality on if peptides are going to be worth it for you or not. And so in this video today, we're going to be going all over AOD9604 and HGH Frag. What is it, 176 through 191, whatever it is. I'm going to be using them interchangeably in this video. They are different compounds, but for the most part, they're about the same. I've noticed in their effects and their efficacy. So I'm just going to be kind of using them interchangeably. But we're going to be going over them today, and we're going to be kind of discussing, are these peptides worth it for you? Should you use them? How do they compare to real growth hormone? How do they compare to some of the growth hormone secretagogues? Things like tesamorelin, which was designed for lipodystrophy. Kind of the full breakdown on if they're worth your while or not. And so this video is going to be a full breakdown. I'll go into my experience on all that stuff. So with that being said, guys, let's dive right in. Okay, so first things first, right? How do these things work? What are they? Well, AOD9604 and HGH Frag are essentially the pieces of growth hormone that are responsible for lipolysis, which is essentially a fat-burning mechanism within the body. And so it's essentially growth hormone, of course, does lipolysis, but it also does a lot of other things. So the goal with creating AOD9604 and HGH Frag was to isolate that amino acid sequence responsible for lipolysis, and then you have a compound that just can give you the lipolysis from the growth hormone without kind of all the other side effects, both good and bad. So that was kind of the goal with them. Of course, right, when these things are designed and then when they come into the real world, like how they actually work is always different than how they're supposed to work on paper. And so from my experience with them, I'll just go into, what I've experienced with them and compare them to growth hormone. I've always been pretty underwhelmed by these. I think they're, in some cases, they're good additions in the sense that they're very minimal on the side effect profile. They don't raise blood glucose levels, although growth hormone doesn't really either if you're living a kind of a good lifestyle. They cause way less bloating than growth hormone, which is nice. But again, I don't really think they're intense drivers of kind of fat loss, right? Especially compared to some of the other options we have, some of the GLP-1s and stuff like that. I don't really see them as being super efficacious when it comes to being like that wow factor when you're losing weight. Now, can you add them in as maybe complementary compounds? Yes. But for the most part, I was never super impressed with them. I mean, I ran them solo, I think from like 300 to 500 micrograms of AOD 9604 taken in the morning and then taken before bed. And I was never really impressed with it, especially as a solo compound. I never noticed really any noticeable fat burning from it, to be fully honest. And that's a pretty big issue with the compound, is for probably about 60% of people, the compound just does not work for them, right? And that could be due to a variety of things. They're using it wrong, the sourcing's bad, but it's one of those peptides, and I'm sure you guys know this really well, where it's like 60% of people that try it and try to take it, it just has zero effect on them, okay? So, know that going in, right? Whereas if you were to take something like growth hormone, I mean, growth hormone pretty much universally works for everybody. Now, is it a perfect compound choice for everybody? No, but is it going to work? For most people, the answer is, of course, yes. So, again, like 60% of people I've noticed that AOD9604 and HGH Frag just simply put do not work for. I'm probably in that 60%. Again, I paired it with the fasting window, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the video. But I was just not really impressed with it at all. Again, the weight loss I got from it was slim to none. In fact, it was like I would rather take yohimbine or injectable carnitine. There's a lot of things I would use over it, and they're kind of expensive too. You rip through vials really fast with the dosing on it, especially because I feel like you do need that higher dosage because, again, they're not the most powerful compounds. So again, it was expensive. It didn't really work that well. You have to pair it with a massive fasting window, okay? So for them to work properly, you really need a huge fasting window. And that's true of a lot of the secretagogues, but this one especially, you need like really the longer the fasting window, the better, but you need around a 4 or 5 hour fasting window. So that's like 2 or 3 hours of not eating before and then 2 or 3 hours of not eating after. And I found that was a bit annoying for the compound to somewhat work properly, which again, for me, even with that fasting window, it didn't work. But that's one of the mistakes I've noticed people make when it doesn't work for them is they don't pair it with that fasting window. So if it's not working for you and you're like hell bent on using it, maybe try pairing it with that fasting window. But again, my personal experience with it was very minimal. Again, the effects really were not that great. I didn't get all the benefits of growth hormone, and I really don't think growth hormone is that side effect ridden of a compound at lower dosages anyways. So in the next portion of this video, guys, I'll discuss some of kind of the good I've seen from clients and people I know that have used AOD9604 and HGH Frag. Okay, so I gave my personal experience in the first part of the video, which was pretty negative. I don't really like the compound. To be fair, there's no real side effects with it, but it's expensive and it didn't really do anything for me. So again, just being realistic there, I feel like my money would be much better spent just on real growth hormone. Now, the argument, of course, with AOD9604 and where I do see it maybe being applicable is some people do get some good fat loss from it actually. And if you do get good fat loss from it, what's nice about it is that you don't get some of the other side effects of growth hormone. Now, my main goal with using it was I bloat so easily, right? I like anything I do bloats me, and I manipulate my electrolytes really well. I do the sauna, but I bloat up really easily. And so my goal with using it was to gain the lipolysis from the growth hormone without the bloating. Obviously didn't work, but if you're someone and the compound does work well for you, it is a bit of a cleaner way if you don't want maybe some of the bloating from the growth hormone or some of the other side effects from growth hormone, or if you just, want to use, it's pretty much if AOD9604 or HGH Frag works well for you, and people who I know, clients and whatnot, who it does work well for, and people who I've spoken to who it does work well for, what's nice about it is that it does give some really good fat loss with virtually zero side effects. Okay, so again, super easy on the system, no real raise in blood glucose, no real bloating risk like you get with normal growth hormone, none of that stuff, which is super nice for some people, especially if your goal is just purely, the weight loss side of things. So again, that's kind of the benefits of it. Again, if it does work well for you, that's where it is nice. It has a very minimal and easy side effect profile. But again, that's on the condition if it does work well for you. So in the next portion of this video, we'll discuss choosing AOD9604 versus regular growth hormone. So if you're watching this video and you're trying to make the decision of AOD9604 versus just using growth hormone, this section is going to be for you. And I think this decision, there's a lot of misconceptions about growth hormone, right? I think a lot of people think that growth hormone is going to cause and be very side effect ridden, but the reality is that 3 to 4 IUs of growth hormone, if you know what you're doing and you're smart, is going to come with a actually very minimal side effect profile, right? Your blood glucose really should not be out of control on 3 to 4 IUs of growth. You shouldn't be having excessive prolactin levels. You shouldn't be having excessive bloating. You should be feeling pretty good from it, right? It's not going to be anything crazy, but you really shouldn't be having any crazy side effects. And I think you can elicit some pretty good lipolysis from growth hormone, lipolysis at least that's equivalent to AOD9604 at that kind of 3 to 4 IU benchmark. So for me, when it comes down to using AOD9604 versus growth hormone at the dosages, which it's comparable to AOD9604, to me really doesn't have that many side effects. So it's kind of like, why would you choose AOD9604 or HGH Frag over regular growth hormone when growth hormone at the 3 to 4 IUs is going to elicit similar lipolysis? You're going to get better sleep from it. You're going to get the lower cortisol. You're going to probably build some muscle with it. It's going to be at a similar price point, and you're really not going to have a whole lot of extra side effects added onto that, okay? Again, if you know what you're doing, 3 to 4 IUs of growth is really not going to be super side effect ridden. So whenever people say like, oh, AOD9604, it's growth hormone, but kind of you don't have the normal side effects of growth hormone, again, there really shouldn't be that many side effects for you with growth hormone at those dosages if you're running it properly. So that's kind of a key thing I always like to note when people bring up AOD9604, and honestly, there's not that many AOD9604 defenders out there, but when people do kind of try to say it's better than growth hormone, I bring that up, that growth hormone at the dosage that's equivalent really does not carry with it that many side effects to begin with. So it's kind of like, why would we lean into a compound that is going to be at the same price point, and we're actually going to lose a lot of the benefits, okay? Because again, with growth hormone, we're getting muscle building potential. We're improving our sleep. We're going to be improving our skin, our hair health, and all that stuff. You get some anti-aging effects from it kind of on the external level. So there's a lot of benefits of growth hormone. And again, the price point, in fact, I think AOD9604 is probably more expensive than just generic growth. So again, AOD9604, and HGH Frag, more expensive than regular growth. You get less of the benefits, and yes, you get less side effects, but growth hormone at the equivalent dosage really does not have that many side effects to begin with in the first place. So again, for me, growth hormone blows AOD9604 and HGH Frag kind of out of the water. I think most people who have tried both would kind of tell you a similar thing. So in the next portion of this video, I'll discuss another key issue with AOD9604 and HGH Frag that annoys me to no end with it, and another reason why I think it's kind of a, not so great compound. So the other issue I have with AOD9604 is that it tends to gel up really, really easily. And I've played around with it before. I've seen it with acetic acid and BAC. And for some people, it's no issue. It must just depend on the vial and the batch you get. But for some vials with AOD and HGH Frag, they gel up super easily in the fridge. Maybe it's a temperature issue, but a ton of people have this issue with it. And it's just another kind of, a pain that comes with using the compound, right? Again, it's more expensive than growth. You have the risk of it gelling up, which is just super annoying. There's nothing worse than, opening up your fridge, pulling out your AOD9604 before your fasted cardio, and it's all gelled up, right? And so this is just another reason why I don't really like this compound. Again, I don't think it's a bad compound. I don't think it has some crazy side effect profile, or I don't think it's something that you should be afraid of or you shouldn't use. It can fit into fat loss stacks pretty well and pretty efficiently and effectively. But guys, for the most part, I think just using regular growth hormone is going to be superior than using AOD9604 or HGH Frag, right? Again, the reasons I listed in this video, I'll go over it one more time. Price point, generic HGH, I think is actually probably cheaper depending on where you get it from than AOD9604, okay? So the price point, you get more benefits with growth hormone. The side effect profile on growth hormone really is not that much higher than AOD9604. Yes, there's less side effects, but again, 3 to 4 IUs of growth really should not be causing you insane side effects, okay? And you don't have to worry about the gelling and the clumping component of it, which again is just a small minor inconvenience, but it's still annoying, right? So again, for most people, stick with your growth hormone. If you're someone who really doesn't want or care about the muscle building effects of growth hormone, you're like, hey, I really just want that isolated lipolysis, you can give AOD9604 or HGH Frag a try. Again, these are not bad or, in my opinion, dangerous compounds, although we still don't have really a lot of evidence on them. But if you're someone who really just wants the lipolysis, go ahead, give them a try. Make sure when you use it, again, to pair it with that large fasting window, or else it will definitely not work. But don't be surprised if you fall into kind of that, 60% of people where it just doesn't work for you, right? Again, I'm one of those people. I know tons of other people in the space who have used it, and they're like, I couldn't even really tell if it was working or not. Whereas again, you hop on growth hormone and it's like night and day. So again, for whatever reason, does not seem to work well for a large number of people. Not my favorite compound. With that being said, guys, this is the truth about AOD9604 and HGH Frag in the context of, application and comparing it to growth hormone. If you guys want more biohacking content, head over to my website, biohackingyou.com. It literally has everything. If you look through it, most of the questions I get from people you can find on the website. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you guys later.